Welcome to the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast. My name is Katie Dodd, and I'm a nutrition entrepreneur. I spent 7 years as a side hustler before diving into entrepreneurship full time. Before making the leap, I was bringing in 6 figures through my side hustle. If I can do it, you can too. This podcast is for dietitians, interns, and students who want to be inspired to start or perfect the side hustle of their dreams. Let's do this. Hello and welcome to the 74th episode of the Dietitian Side Hustle podcast, Content Planning for 2022. Today, I will be interviewing Liz. Liz is a registered dietitian, writer, and editor. She's the owner of the Dietitian Editor brand, which seeks to continually empower and educate registered dietitian nutritionists on how they can improve their writing and editing skills, while also sharing inspiration for content planning and content creation. Liz is a student of the Blogging Accelerator program and is a member of our Blog Boss Mastermind. Welcome, Liz. Would you like to share a few words before we get started?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on tonight. I'm so excited to talk about this topic of content planning with the community of Dietitian Side Hustle and just hopefully share some valuable tips and tricks when it comes to, planning out your content for the year.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad to have you. So my first question for you is, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the writing and editing space?
Sure. So I've actually been a registered dietitian for a little over 15 years now, which is crazy. And I've just always had a passion for writing and editing. And so I remember back when I was a young RD, just starting out all those moons ago, I remember I made like a bucket list of all the things I wanted to achieve in my career as a dietitian. Like I wanted to do local TV media segments and write, for the local paper. And I crossed a lot of them off my list. But I remember one of my dream jobs that was on that list was to be an editor-in-chief of like a health and wellness, glossy magazine. And so while my career path did not take me, it took me down many different roads, but it did not take me down the road of editing or publishing. And so over the years, I kind of like fine tune the skill set to become a great editor and writer through my jobs. I also held a lot of volunteer positions with several dietetic practice groups. So I was the DBC or Dietitians in Business and Communications newsletter editor for several years. And I currently serve as the newsletter editor for FCP, or Food and Culinary Professionals. So through many of my jobs, I've really had the opportunity to write and edit and proofread and kind of like fine tune these skills. So last summer, I actually decided to join the Blogging Accelerator program and start my own side hustle so that I could help other dietitians and food brands get their message out to the world. So help them offer different editorial services to them, like editing and proofreading. Book formatting is something that I'm doing now too, which is a lot of fun and I love learning about, and really helping other dietitians become self-published authors. So it's something I love and I'm passionate about, and I'm excited that I'm, being able to add value to the profession and help other dietitians in the process. So it's a win-win. I love it.
Awesome. Well, I kind of learned a little bit more about you that I did not know. And, that's, thanks so much for sharing. And I also, I love that we both like to volunteer a lot within the Academy. That's something we both share in common. Yes. And also thinking back of that goal you had of being an editor-in-chief of like a fancy magazine, but now it's like, you're going to do even better. You're going to be the CEO of your own blog business. So yeah, you're still going to do it. You're just going to do it for yourself. You'll make more money in the long run. And
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's dive into the topic that we are here to talk about today. Can you talk a little bit more about what content planning is and how creating content can help dietitian side hustlers?
Yeah, this is a really important topic. It's a big topic. So I guess one of the things I wanted to talk about too is like the word content. I feel like it gets thrown around really loosely these days. Like, oh, I'm going to create content, or you need to be, create engaging, consistent content. And everyone's saying the word, but I don't know if everyone really understands what it is or what to do with it. So it could be like really overwhelming if you don't have a plan in place. I feel like, and this has happened to myself in the past too, like sometimes we can find ourselves posting, for like 10 to 14 days straight every day at 9 a.m. or, we're on a schedule, and then we get burnt out really easily. And then we can stop posting for weeks at a time. So that can actually hurt your engagement and your following, because people are expecting something from you so often, and then you just kind of fall off. So when you have a plan in place for your content, it really helps to like remove a lot of the guesswork, so that you don't have to think too hard about what's coming next or what you have to post next. So I guess content planning, it like not only helps to support your overall strategy, but in your goals. Like ultimately the goal really of creating content on a consistent basis is to generate leads or create leads and generate sales. Like you want to bring those people, give them valuable content on a consistent basis, bring them back to your site, bring them back to your social media platform. So I guess I was trying to think about this a little bit more strategically, and like I kind of broke it down into five areas or 5 questions that content planning really helps you with. And that's: who are you creating content for? What are you creating? How will you create it? Where will you share it? And when will you share it with your community? So if you can kind of like reflect on that in terms of the content plan and address those 5 areas, it's like a no-fail process, because you're figuring out, okay, this is who I'm creating this for. This is what I'm creating. What's the message? How, where, and when am I going to share it? So those are just some tips that I think would be helpful for the community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I love that you kind of painted the picture of like, well, here's what content is and how it helps you. And I like diving into the who, what, how, where, when kind of stuff of it, because you're right. It does get thrown around a lot and it is overwhelming. I will say, I know for my, when I started the geriatric dietitian blog, I would post content on Instagram every day with no strategy, just because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. I was like, oh, you're supposed to post content. Let me post content. But I really didn't have any strategy. And I've kind of shifted how I do that anymore. But
yeah. Okay. And I would say that one thing that I know you talk about a lot too is like, how can you solve a problem or create a solution for your viewer or your reader? I think if you could do that, then you really like found the golden nugget, right? Like if you can figure out, okay, not only am I going to create content, but I'm going to solve a problem for my follower or for my community, that if you can ask yourself that question as you're creating the content at hand, what problem does this solve? What solutions can I offer? Then you've really like hit gold.
Yes, absolutely. So where do you recommend dietitians create this content, and how should they get it out into the world?
So this is a tough question. I guess I would say that, regardless of your niche or your side hustle, it's inevitable that you need to be on social media, it's essential that we have a presence on social media, but I don't think it's necessary to be everywhere to everyone when it comes to social. So picking like 1 or 2 platforms that really resonates with your audience is probably key, and trying to like learn the ins and outs of those 2 platforms well before moving on to other platforms. But I guess like bonus tip would be, you still should secure your handle on all social platforms, because if ever, down the road, you do want to pursue, Pinterest or TikTok or YouTube or something, in addition to what you currently are on, then you have that at the ready.
Yeah. And that definitely is something I recommend too, to where that way, you secure your name, but then making sure you put a post where you let people know where to find you. Like, if you're on Twitter, you have a Twitter account, have a tweet up that's something up at the top, even in the description, it says, I'm most active on Instagram, go follow me here. So that way people know like, this isn't some abandoned brand. Yeah. Yes,
that is a great point. I actually should go back and do that on a couple platforms. So thank you for that tip.
Yeah. Awesome. And, I'm assuming you're creating most of your content, like your images, on Canva?
Yes. Yeah. Canva's it's just an excellent tool. I feel like a lot of people are familiar with it. And even whether you have the free or paid version, there's just a lot available, to you to create. But I will say the pro version just makes your life that much easier, because you can resize images. And I was going to mention that as a tip in a little bit, but like repurposing content, it's just so easy to create something once and then repurpose it, across platforms at like the click of a button. So
yes, I love my Canva Pro. So I know it's kind of maybe ties in with what you already answered, but what are some like tips or hacks that you have for creating content, like especially when the creative juices are running really low? You're like, I know I need to make something, but I just can't think of anything, like creator's block, right?
yes, which happens a lot. It happens a lot. So I guess I'll go into what I was just saying about like repurposing your content. I'll say this: repurpose your content again and again and then again, because sometimes there's really no need to be creative, which sounds kind of counterintuitive. But if you can look back at your existing content and scroll through like your old blog posts, your social media feed, just recreate something that already exists. So when I say that, I mean, if you had a blog post, recreate an infographic in Canva, recreate a video by reading through an existing blog post, which Katie, I know you've mentioned a couple times to us in the Blogging Accelerator program. Like some people may not want to read your blog post, but if you have a video and are talking about the same exact topic at hand, they may prefer that in terms of how they consume the content. You can even address your community by hosting like a Facebook Live and doing a Q&A on maybe a popular blog post that had like a lot of questions or comments around it, and you can address it that way. But I think like a lot of times people are always looking to create something new when you could just reflect back on what you've already done. So when creative juices are running low, I would suggest, number one, go back and look at existing content. But two more tips about getting the creative juices flowing. I would say keyword research is a big one. So this is something that I learned over the past 6 months once I started with your Blogging Accelerator program. I just feel like it's a great place to start when you don't know what to write. So if you go into a keyword research tool, and there's several, a lot of free ones out there like Google Trends, Answer the Public, Keyword Generator. And then there's obviously ones you could pay for too. Like I really like Key Search for my tool. But if you just start typing in keywords that relate to your niche or your side hustle, and you try to find ones that are lower difficulty and high volume. So even if it's just like 100, so if 100 people a month are searching for this term, and then you just start writing, because you'll be surprised at what people are searching online. It's very surprising. I was enlightened what people are searching for as it pertains to your niche. Like there's topics that I have kind of slotted for later this year that I probably wouldn't have thought of to write about. But keyword research told me people are searching this term. So, and I have an example for that. Jamie, who's in our Blog Boss Mastermind and also in the Blogging Accelerator program, she's from Baltimore too, so shout out to Baltimore. She did a keyword search on her website is Well Nourished Mamas, and so she was looking for topics on what to write about next, and jackfruit came up. She would have never written about jackfruit, but the keyword phrase was, is it safe to eat jackfruit during pregnancy? So I thought that was really interesting, because even she said she never would have typed about that. So it kind of got her creative juices flowing. And if you want the answer to that question, you can go check out her blog. But for the third tip, so repurposing content, using keyword research. And then for the third one, I would say there are some blog posts in general that just typically perform better than others. And then this could be like across different niches. So if you did like a listicle type post, so top 9 ways to add more veggies to your breakfast or something like that, people tend to really gravitate towards those types of posts. And odd numbers for some reason seem to do better than even. So if you can keep it to 9 ways versus 8 ways, you might get more traction that way. Or even like a roundup article. So reaching out to some of your colleagues or peers and asking them for either recipes or tips on whatever the topic is. And then you can give them some backlinks by hyperlinking back to their site. So that's a good way to kind of like make it easy for you to write something by gathering information from other sources.
Yeah. Awesome. Gosh, you covered so many different things. And I liked what you shared about keyword research, because I know when we talk about content, it can be content for the blog, but then also social media, and
Yeah.
how like keyword research is a strategy we use for SEO, search engine optimization, to get people to find our blogs. But also, you're right. When we put in topics, it gives us tons of other related topics that we might not have thought about. So that is a great tool for trying to get creative. But my favorite thing you said actually was that there's no need to be creative. Like, I wrote that down. That's so good, because I mean, I love creativity,
Yeah.
but I liked how you were talking about like recreate, get back to the basics. Sometimes we make things too complicated and we're trying to create these new amazing things, but especially when we're talking about social media, people just need the basics and they need to hear it over and over and over again. And I think sometimes we think, if I posted about this once, I can't post it again. But the way algorithms work, like,
Yeah.
very little of your audience saw it to start with, and no one's going to be all judgmental if you post the same topic multiple times. So
And
I
it's like, what do
actually,
they say? You have to say something 7 times before it like
Mhm.
resonates, or try new food 7 times before your child finally eats it, all those things. So
Yeah, yes.
repurpose.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway with this when it comes to planning content. It's like, well, gosh, you don't have to plan as much content, just keep reusing it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. But I would say to that too, like, if there are definitely times when you're not creative, but there's times where you may be feeling super inspired and creative, like take advantage of those.
yes.
And one thing that I started earlier this month was time blocking when it comes to content planning. And I was able to crank out like 39 posts in the beginning of this month on one day. It probably took me like 4 hours, to be honest, but I got 39 social media posts scheduled in my scheduling tool I use later. And that's just, it's going to save me so much time down the road, like throughout the quarter. And I think, I was feeling inspired, I was feeling creative, and I just cranked it out. And it's just, I think you have to take advantage of the times when you do feel that way. And then the times that you don't feel so creative, repurpose or use one of those, blog formats that just are easy to kind of gather information and post. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that's another hack you just shared about using a scheduling tool like later.com. That's a great way where, like Liz says, when you're feeling creative, make that content. Like, if you make a bunch at the beginning of the month, you can have it all scheduled. Then you don't have to think about it again till the next month, or however long you batch out your content.
Yes. And then you could just sprinkle in, like, if you have something, to say spur of the moment or spontaneously, just then you can add to the existing posts.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you so much for all of that. I know that you have created a wonderful low-cost resource for dietitians to plan out their content for 2022. So I'm hoping that you can share more with our listeners about this wonderful resource you created.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity to just mention this resource. It's something I've wanted to create for a really, really long time. And I finally got it out into the world earlier this month, but it's called the 2022 Content Inspiration and Planning Workbook. And it's designed for registered dietitians who are not only in the online space, but just, business owners, entrepreneurs. You could be a blogger or an influencer or speaker. It's really versatile in that respect. Even clinicians could utilize it for newsletter topics and things like that. But it's for dietitians who are looking for additional content inspiration this year, help them kind of craft a strategy or a plan for 2022. And so I know I kind of like always joke about this, and we've chuckled about this in the past, but like there is a day or a themed day almost for every day of the year.
Yeah.
Not all of them pertain to food and nutrition and health and wellness, but I was able to gather over 180 food themed months, weeks, and days that have like a health and wellness focus or a culinary focus. So those are all in one place. You could see them on a monthly calendar. You could see the days broken up. And then it not only gives you inspiration for those types of themes, but then it gives you a space month by month to plan your content. So out of those holidays, what are the 4 topics you want to highlight? What are the 3 supporting messages you want to talk about when it comes to that topic? And then it even dives a little further into like, okay, now what are some keywords and hashtags I want to use surrounding that topic? What are some resources that I want to reference? And what are some brands or associations that maybe I could partner with or work with, or tag, even just to gain more exposure when it comes to posting on social, like tagging a certain brand on that topic. So it's just a really helpful tool. And by no means are there all of the holidays in there, but it is a pretty comprehensive list.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I do have the workbook myself and it's pretty darn amazing. So thank you for creating this resource for us. It's going to make planning content for 2022 a breeze. And if you are listening to the podcast, you can find the link for this product in the show notes. And you could also go to Liz's website, thedietitianeditor.com, and there's a little link on the right-hand side where you can grab the workbook. So thank you so much for being here today, Liz. Where can people find you online?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been so much fun. I really, really appreciate the opportunity. And folks can find me on my website at thedietitianeditor.com, or I am primarily on Instagram and Facebook at the Dietitian Editor. I'm also pretty active on LinkedIn, so at Liz Jalkowitz.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the podcast, guys. Be sure to head on over to the Dietitian Side Hustle website at dietitiansidehustle.com and check out our coaching page to learn about all the ways that we can work together. Have an amazing day, and I'm so proud of you for taking the initiative to listen to this podcast. Now go out there and get it done. Bye, guys.